Welcome to Motion and Means, the show that connects the dots between transportation and opportunity.
You know, every journey, every single route, every mode of transport we rely on, it's not just about movement, it's really about access. Access to jobs, to education, to community, and to a better quality of life. Here on Motion and Means, we explore how transportation really acts as this vital enabler, a true economic equalizer that can totally shape our communities and, our own individual futures.
We're going to look at the innovations driving change, the policies that can create more equitable systems, and the human stories behind all that infrastructure. So, let's get moving. This is Motion and Means.
Okay, let's dive into this week's analysis. The global market is in a state of what we're calling a tectonic adjustment. And it's a big one.
So here's how we're going to break this down. We'll follow the ripples of one single policy change and see how it's reshaping trade, creating some serious market confusion, totally transforming transportation, and revealing a brand new reality for global business.
All right, so it all starts with one single, really impactful shift in U.S. trade policy. And believe me, it changes the rules for pretty much everyone.
The policy at the very center of all this disruption is the de minimis exemption. Now, for years, this was the secret sauce, the key to simple, low-cost international e-commerce.
But as of August 29, 2025, that $800 duty-free threshold, well, it's gone. And that fundamentally changes the entire economic equation for small importers and e-commerce sellers overnight.
The impact was immediate and created this cascade of new costs, administrative hurdles, and honestly some stunning service disruptions. I mean, postal services in Europe and India actually had to announce temporary suspensions of shipments to the US because they just weren't ready for the new rules. Wild.
And it's so crucial to understand this isn't happening in a vacuum. Nope. It's part of a much bigger landscape of new tariffs and regulations. We're talking forced labor laws hitting things like lithium and copper, all the way to new 50% tariffs on steel. The rules of the game are changing, like everywhere you look.
So this policy shock has created a deeply, deeply confusing market picture. On one hand, you hear things look great. On the other, they look terrible. So what's actually happening out there? It's a real head-scratcher. I mean, on one side, you're hearing reports of a strong market, right? Ports are busy, GDP is resilient, carriers like Maersk see strong peak season demand, but then you look at the other side of the coin, and the data shows a big slowdown. Import volumes dropped, and the Cass Freight Index has been declining for 30 straight months. So, what is the truth?
Okay, so this quote really hits the nail on the head. Here's the crucial point. Importers literally rushed to get ahead of the new tariffs. They were front-loading their shipments. This created a temporary surge that pulled demand forward from the second half of the year. So that strong port activity, it wasn't a sign of a booming economy, it was a reaction to policy.
Now, what's really fascinating is how this single big picture story is playing out so differently across each individual mode of transport.
Let's start with ocean freight. It's a total paradox. Rates have absolutely plummeted, over 50% from their recent peak. Yet service reliability is the best it has been in years. Maersk is reporting a staggering 98.5% on-time arrival rate to the West Coast. So for importers, it's an ideal environment. For the carriers who overinvested in capacity,
Yeah, it's a painful correction.
Meanwhile, the U.S. trucking market is at a real tipping point. After 2 years of decline, spot rates are finally up year over year. And get this, it's not because of more demand. It's because capacity is shrinking as more carriers are leaving the market than are entering it.
And here's the visual proof of that shift. For the first time in 2 years, both van and reefer spot rates are showing positive year-over-year growth. This is that classic early signal of a market change that, trust me, everyone in the industry has been watching for.
Now, up in the air, the story is all about these high-level agreements. A new zero-for-zero tariff deal between the U.S. and EU on aircraft parts is creating stability, while Boeing is reportedly in talks to sell up to 500 jets to China. It just goes to show you that even with all this trade friction, some strategic supply chains are just too interconnected to break apart.
And finally, we have rail, which is proving to be the backbone of resilience through all this, with growth across key sectors. But look at this. Intermodal is the real star here. It's up 8% year over year, which tells you importers are shifting to more cost-effective solutions in this uncertain environment.
So, after all that, what does this all mean for businesses just trying to navigate this new reality?
The key, really, is a strategic shift. In this new era, survival means being more agile, more data-driven, and way more compliant. That means diversifying your sourcing to avoid tariff risks, using technology for real-time visibility, and constantly auditing your supply chain to adapt your mix of transport modes.
Ultimately, these massive global shifts force every business out there to ask a really crucial question. In this new world, is your supply chain a risk, or is it an opportunity to find your next competitive advantage?